Okay, good. Good, 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 good. Where is Discord? There's Discord. Do that. Yeah. Nice. So, I've left the door to my room cracked open because my cat is sleeping on my reading chair, and I have no doubt that me talking and live streaming is going to irritate her and wake her up. And yeah, I can already see she's got her eyes open. She's a little bit grumpy. She's like, "Who's he talking to?" Uh, yeah. Isn't that right, Squeaker? She really likes my reading chair. Anywho, there's only a couple things this stream that I was going to run through. Let's there we go. Feels like stuff has gone at least a little bit quieter. Uh Maybe a little bit. Yeah, maybe. There's some tension right now. Uh because the Save Act, I made a video on the Save Act explaining why it's really fucking bad. But the Save Act is I don't mean times are peaceful. Yeah, no, for sure. It's like, are we in the storm or are we in the calm before the storm? It seems like right now it's the calm leading up to another storm of shit. One of them being the Save Act, the other one being I guess I could just go to right into the one really major thing. Uh, it kind of expands on what RFK Jr. said about autism and autistic kids being the like useless eaters or whatever. Uh, he's launching a study into autism in America, which is basically a fancy way of saying he's collecting medical records of people who have autism. They're creating a giant government registry of people that have autism. Uh, Infinite guesses as to what that will be used for. He just wants to kill all the autistic people. You know? In fact, I have a let me search on Blue Sky. I gotta search for there we go. Thread by Robert Evans. Let's see. I think I liked the thread on my profile. I should be able to find it. Sounds like to me I'm looking for specific data points to manufacture killing consent. Maybe. I think this is actually one step beyond the manufacturing consent phase. I think that this is like the banal way that they will start to implement this sort of genocide against autistic people. It seems like the way they intend to do this is not necessarily with death camps, the likes of which you would see in CSOT and El Salvador, or CCOT, or whatever it's called. Here, from Robert Evans. I think he had a really good point here. I think people are missing the forest for the trees with this one. RFK Jr. wants complete centralized knowledge of every American's health in order to exact control on what medications are allowed and in order to fabricate evidence for each and all of his nonsense theories. His goal, and he has been extremely consistent here, is to micromanage what medications and treatments are allowed based wholly on his personal beliefs. His base of support are parents of kids with autism. I will add to that effect. His base of support are parents who have autistic kids who hate their autistic kids. even if they are in denial, like, no, I love my kid. The problem is the autism. That's part of your kid. You gotta love your kid all the same. You know, that's his base of support. His plan isn't the T4 program, but it is sick and dangerous and deadly. RFK Jr. wants to end autism, which he sees as a disease, and that is absolutely genocidal, because ending autism means he wants to kill autistic people. Autism is a very complicated neurological phenomenon. And so when you get somebody in government like that who's like, I want to end autism in this country, and I'm creating a giant registry of people who have autism, the only reason that you would do that is to kill them through one method or another. But he's not planning to round up and mass execute people. He wants to punish doctors and gain total control over what treatments are available. The consequences of this will cost countless lives. He must be stopped. But it's important to understand that what's happening here isn't a carbon copy of the old Nazi program. This is a new, hideous evil, and it must be confronted as such. Real life is becoming like the X-Men? Yeah. You know, it's... Sometimes I'll look at stuff like that, and quite candidly, it'll be like, oh, that's kind of soy. But then, you know... When you think about it, fascism is soy, and you know, so I guess it fits. No, I think Robert Evans has a really good point that I didn't really consider before, but makes all the more sense when you put it into context about genocide by bureaucratic micromanagement, right? If you think about other issues where Republicans have tried to exercise a degree of medical control in order to strip people's rights away, like abortion, one of the things that they've tried to do is punish doctors for giving treatment to people that they disapprove of. You know, basically like trying to arrest doctors that will provide abortion or birth control pills to people. Even though they are outside of their authority in doing so, it didn't work when they tried to do it, to my knowledge, in these like out-of-state cases. But regardless, it seems very in line with the kind of legalistic takeover that the far right has done in the United States, that they would go for the approach of basically atomizing the death camps to the level of the individual. Essentially, like, having it be such that whether if you are autistic and that is on a record somewhere, then it can be used as a justification for the government to basically crack down on medical doctors or providers to decide that you actually, since you're autistic, you don't get your depression meds, or you don't get your ADHD meds, or you don't get any of the medicine that you might need otherwise, because you are part of this chronic sickness, and we don't want to enable your bad habits that cause you to be chronically sick, or something like that. You know, that's the sort of genocidal angle that they are reaching for here. We're trying to fight them being registered. Yeah, I mean, it's not that different from, like, even if it isn't a carbon copy of what the Nazis did, it is very similar to, in Germany, there being a national registry of Jewish persons, right? Like, specifically, we're creating a list of all the Jews in Germany for the intention of what exactly? Well, we found out what their intentions were. They put them in concentration camps and started killing them. The difference here is, instead of the concentration camp, you have an abstracted bureaucratic system that basically functions in a similar way to what happened with the CDC in the 1980s, where the AIDS epidemic was ongoing and raging, and they decided to basically cut gay people out of the treatment cycle, deny treatment to gay people by virtue of, like, shutting down all research on treatment, and ostracizing gay people from society. That was a genocide against gay people. Was it entirely successful? I wouldn't say so. It was, the death toll was massive, though. It was really bad. Similar thing here. There's a mishmash of various historical atrocities that are coming together to create RFK Jr.'s plan to basically herald in autistic people as a medical underclass that the government can crack down on by way of like putting a barrier between them and doctors, so that they can't be treated for either autism for like mental health treatment or whatever, or to even get physiological treatment for other ailments that they may have, simply because like, oh, you have autism, you're on the autism registry, so no, actually. Does that make sense? He's glad that fascism will die before they have advanced enough technology to get rid of us. The technology to do what they're doing already exists. The thing about fascists is that they're just too incompetent to use it. By virtue of them like committing to the bit at all, they impede their ability to do this. But seriously, what do you think is like, how do they think it's going to play when the news starts hitting that the federal government is like arresting doctors that are trying to help autistic kids who also have like depression or something? They are so cartoonishly evil that in order to do anything that they want to do, they have to reveal how cartoonishly evil they are, precisely because all of the things they want to do are just that evil, to the extent that they want to do anything at all. The versions of fascism that are most likely to succeed are actually the more grift-aligned and disingenuous modes of fascism that don't necessarily care that much about doing death camps in the end, right? Fascism as a vehicle for capital is infinitely more likely to succeed in its aims because it's capable of discarding fascism at various points to simply rationally pursue the most effective ways of personal profit, right? This kind of fascism is like it's more akin to what I've sometimes called it as like the all-consuming fire that is a force of nature and cannot sustain itself. Like, the more it burns, the more guaranteed it is that it will burn out, Ooh, that was actually the perfect timing for that shot. However, I am vulnerable now. Okay, I get third. Pull their special move. And just lie 24/7 like the person that got deported. Yeah, I mean, like, they were already doing that, you see. Like, that's the thing, right? They can lie all they want about what they're doing, but at a certain point, it becomes so, like, it's so transparent that everybody knows, even in a post-truth world where they have succeeded in obscuring what exactly the truth is, everybody will know that they are lying. People may not know what the real facts of the case are, but they know that, fascists lie all the time. The thing that constantly lying accomplishes, isn't to convince people that you're not lying. Let's take a look at The Guardian, maybe? Really fascinating how long it just breaks people's brains if they hear it too much. Yeah, I mean, yeah. But it's only capable of doing that if the manufacturing of consent is sustained. It only takes one break in that pattern for that work to start being undone. Oh yeah, also, I think Mehmet Oz got sworn in as part of the administration. And funnily enough, that he also had a useless eaters moment, but like, not just with regards to autistic people. I think he said basically healthy people don't need healthcare or something, which is incredible. Shortcut? Love that shortcut. Oh, shit. Ow. Okay. Oh. Try to get a couple people around that corner. I think I was successful. Narrowly avoided getting really bumped. That guy got owned by a stationary red shell. Don't know how that happened. There was a shock a little while ago, so I think I might be okay to take the double shortcut here. Whoa! Okay, okay. Alright, alright, alright. Let's calm down a little bit there. Nice. I think I raced that pretty well. Yeah, the National Institutes of Health. Yeah, we're defunding all the cancer research from the NIH, and we're going to instead direct them with what money they do have to make a list of all autistic people. Apparently some random religious figure died. People are wondering who's the replacement. You mean the Pope? That was the Pope. Pope Francis died on April 21st, I believe. Yeah. The day after Easter. And yeah, there's a pretty big question as to who's going to replace him. The Catholic Church as an institution actually changed quite a bit under Pope Francis. Pope Francis was like uncharacteristically progressive as far as popes go and religious leaders generally. And so now there's actually a pretty big series of question marks as to who's going to replace him. First of all, because the Pope has historically been a really, really important position. But then also because, you know, if you juxtapose somebody like Pope Francis and the amount of good that he was concerned with doing, and the sort of reformism that he brought to the Catholic Church, with somebody like, I don't fucking know, Pope Benedict, the guy that came immediately before him. And there's a astonishing difference between like what would be possible for the next pope, right? Like it would be good if the next pope was progressive, similar enough to Pope Francis, right? It would be bad if the pope was a far-right dipshit like Pope Benedict, who would like double down on the fucking I don't know, prosperity gospel and homophobia or something. But in my opinion, I actually don't think it's super likely that you get a really conservative pope, at least by like religious leader standards, because a lot of the cardinals and ultra conservatives in the Catholic Church are Americans, you know? And the American Catholic Church is basically just Protestants, you know? Like, particularly the converts. A lot of American Catholics really will only believe in papal authority when it suits them. America is very Protestant-brained, and that even applies to Catholics. Sounds like every religious person ever. Yeah, basically. It does sound weird to say, but there are some people, like, it didn't occur to me until recently, but it is rare to get somebody that actually, truly, genuinely does believe in God and the authority of the Pope and the divinity of the Pope. You know? Uh, you know? But those people are much more common outside of the United States. You know? That shortcut is dicey as hell. Blue shell. What do you think government will say they don't, what? Barely lived. Why do you think the government will say they don't get what they want with this Pope? What do you mean by that? Not sure I understand. Oh, if they fail? I think, like, yeah, if they fail, I mean, the American Catholic Church is just, the rift between the American Catholic Church and the rest of the world under the Catholic, like, umbrella, like, that rift is just going to grow, I think. You know, because think about the American Catholics. They're either like, they're either aligned with you know, the papacy, the rest of the Catholics, in which case they're less insane, or they're Catholic converts like J.D. Vance, in which case they are completely unhinged. And I see the gap between those two widening. I don't know. Look, I'm not religious. I'm not an expert on religious institutions and whatever, but you know, it is something I at least have some interest in because it is politically relevant, and because like there are so many Catholics that are connected to the Catholic Church in some way that I think it genuinely does matter who the Pope is, because they have a lot of authority to steer the Catholic Church in one direction or another. And so long as such a position exists, I prefer that it would be used to steer the Catholic Church in a direction that's further left than where it is right now. Does that make sense? This must be everywhere. Yeah, true. True to my principles, I want everywhere to move further left. You know? I'm slowing people just by going regular speed because I'm Yoshi. There are people who are like, I just want to help minorities, it's not political. Yeah, I think, you know, over time people do need to be disabused of the notion that wanting good things or bad things is not political, because that is political, right? Like, people will say this is not a political or partisan issue, but it is. Like, people don't want to believe, like, people still have this weird habit of externalizing politics in such a way that they'll say this shouldn't be political. Everything that is an ethical statement is political, you know? You know? Ow. Great. Tried to save my mushroom and I got Mario Karted for it. Couldn't tell if they believe that or they just want to lose tax exempt status. The only people who would really care about churches losing tax exempt status are those that directly benefit from that tax exempt status. For example, people who are in the employ of the church, or who are like priests, pastors, and whatnot. You know, that's one of the problems with American Protestantism, is that a lot of it is just like, you know, a lot of the, you know, the mega churches are all just business scams to get out of paying taxes and shit. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of at the end of my analysis on that. Most people say, think I want is bad if you consider that it's good. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of, it was kind of one of the underestimatingly, like, one of the more frustrating things about that was kind of underestimated how frustrating that would be, is that the format, like, the format to me was quite interesting. It was structured, right? Sam was going to make a claim. Sam Cedar made a claim, a factual claim, and then they would have to go up there and refute that claim. And I think the only time where they actually refuted the claim was the very first one, you know? Actually, not even then, you know? Like, so much of that panel was just them not even, like, at most times not even talking about the claim itself, or descriptively agreeing with the substance of the claim. Like, when Sam Cedar said, like, oh yeah, if you weren't part of these groups, it wouldn't have been a good idea to vote for Trump. And then, like, they sit down and proceed to explain that I am a part of that group, and it was good that I voted for Trump, actually. Which, number one, if it has any bearing on the claim, like, that, oh yeah, unless you were a religious fundamentalist, voting for Trump was a mistake, and then they sat down and proceeded to explain why religious fundamentalism is good, actually, that doesn't refute the claim. If anything, it supports the claim, you know, if it has any bearing at all, you know? Same with that guy about, like, Social Security and whatever, right? The claim was that Republicans are getting rid of Social Security. Like, they want to get rid of these social safety programs. That's a descriptive claim. But these chuckle fucks went up there and said, like, what if that's good, actually? That's not the claim, you know? Jesus, I feel like I'm like, as a debate bro myself, I feel so fucking insulted by that panel, because none of these people, like, they're all so poisoned by the dishonesty of fascism, they don't even understand how a debate works. You know, like, it was so poorly structured by virtue of the people participating in it, and from no fault of Sam Cedar's. You know? Bro, Easter this year was wild at my house. Bro the Boss, welcome back. I almost shudder to ask what kind of horror stories unfolded over Easter. I think I'm gonna let this guy have first. Here, gesture of good faith. Well, glad to know you don't feel the same way, idiot. That's what you fucking get. Nah, you're not getting any from me. There we go. See, I try to play nice with the guy in front of me, and that's what fucking happens. You know? Pretty fun. I kept saying, the color red in sentences to piss off my family. Really? Are they that fragile that they get offended at the mention of the color red? Because that's funny as hell. Sounds like a cartoon show, yeah. It's like fucking some sleeper agent shit. Like, you hear the word red, and you get activated to go and do, like, fucking undercover, I don't know, FBI activities or some shit. Yeah, they're like the Winter Soldier. You say, like, you know, are like, all right, soldier, it's time to activate code red or some shit. They're like, yes, sir. They go and, like, kill the president. I don't fucking know. That's some shit the Winter Soldier does, right? Oh, and speaking of Easter, which I believe occurred on, yeah, April 20th. Second movie, they had an airplane that was going to shoot anyone that was considered a friend? What? Enemy. Oh. Oh, yeah. Like, yeah, I've seen the Winter Soldier. After Easter, me and Uncle were arguing about trans people. He kept using an anti-trans slur and told them to shut the fuck up. Yeah, and I think you were within your rights to do so. Like, what the fuck? Hot take, Winter Soldier is one of the only Marvel movies that has a good story, and I agree. I think I agree, you know? I think, you know, as time passes, as the Marvel universe gets, like, further and further behind us, we're more capable of seeing, like, oh shit, you know, a lot of it kind of sucked. It was very of the moment, right? But that was, like, one of the rare good ones. Oh, that was a kind of a weird bounce. Random green shell. If I get shocked, I'm kind of fucked, but if I get to do the gap jump, I might just spend this mushroom. Well. Okay, so I'm not as fucked as I would have been, but it's not great still. Remember the time Captain America said Hail Hydra? Yeah, in Endgame, to avoid fighting in the elevator like he did the other time. Endgame really felt designed to just be like a collection of self-referential pop culture stuff. Okay. I think I'm fine here, as long as there's not another shock. Made so much money. Oh, yeah, it did. Dude! You gotta be kidding me, man. Oh my god. Somebody in this room has got it in for me. That shock was not a target shock for anybody else. Did you guys see the minimap? Everybody behind me was either still in the cave, or the people ahead of me were rounding the turn. Nobody did the gap jump except for me. Holy. That's one time I will say stream sniping and be 100% confident in it. But anyways, now that I've tooted my, like, horn of self-importance a little bit. Shortcuts always have a risk. Yeah, I know that. But I don't think it was reasonable to expect that they would have gotten me specifically on the shortcut. You know? saw the list you're talking about. 100% going to be treated differently by society. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Maybe not society at large, but definitely by the state, you know? I think there are a lot of people who, like the consent for killing autistic people in the way that RFK Jr. wants to do by, like, bureaucratic micromanagement hasn't been, like, very well manufactured the way that it would have been in Germany for killing Jews. Because Germany was already really, really fucking anti-Semitic at the time. You know, people who have autism are simply too human in that the eyes of the average American for the government to just be able to get away with, like, killing all of them. It's still going to be really bad, right? Oh boy. Watch this. Damn it. People in the worldwide room saw me drive straight into a pole, but that's because I'm moderating Twitch while driving again. It's fine, I'll just start using this. This is actually not a bad place to get hit by that, because now I can just hit this and get third. If they killed all the autistic people, they'd have no population left. Exactly. Exactly. That's kind of the point of what I was getting at in, like, in that other video, the video about RFK Jr. really, really fucking hating autistic people, is there's two core things there that will, well, that work kind of in autistic people's favor. Number one, that there are more, like, basically everybody is autistic or ADHD or something like that, because the, like, spectrum of neurological conditions is very complicated, and in some ways arbitrarily determined. And also, the base of parents who hate their autistic children and the people who think that autists are useless eaters is small enough that it's not necessarily determinative of larger societal attitudes towards people on the spectrum, right? Like I said, autistic people are simply too human in the eyes of the average person to justify a genocidal project such as this. I didn't get a box there. That's unfortunate. It's 2 laps? Okay. Alright, I'm going to throw this forward. Ride these boost panels like usual. Ow. Okay, whatever. Okay, now I got a box. For a group that claims they're about the family, they have a lot of, if my child is this, I'll put them behind the shed. Yeah, well, because remember what I said, what I've said on some other occasions, that when people on the right talk about the family unit, what they mean is paterfamilias. They don't actually care about what creates a stable and healthy family where people can flourish and have good, like, emotional connections and are accepted for who they may be or who they, you know, will eventually be or anything like that. What they care about is creating a family unit that is dominated by the father figure and where the wife and children are chattel property, right? They literally don't view women and children as people. So when they talk about the family, what they mean is putting women and children back in their place as things to be owned and controlled, right? That's why the rhetoric coming from RFK Jr. about autistic kids sounds the way it does. It's very Autism Speaks coded. Ironic considering that Autism Speaks has now realized, this is too far. We hate autistic kids, but not so much that we think they should die. You know? Policies made one person literally have to flee the other side of the country for their life, and they were like homeless for a while. Yeah, and I'm sure that, like, that applies to more than just one person. The kind of family that the far right cares about and emphasizes so much is the kind of family where queer kids disproportionately experience homelessness and are in very dire living situations because they are like more likely to be kicked out of the house by conservative family members that don't view them as human in any sense, but especially not when they are queer or in other ways non-conforming, because the far right image of the family, paterfamilias, is one where the father as the proprietor is entitled to the ownership of their children. Motherfucker, the kids are human beings who have rights, you know? They are literally I remember a while back, I was reading, like, a UN article about certain far-right groups. They're literally called anti-rights groups. They just support, and I think that's a great name for the kind of attitude that right-wing family values is. It's just anti-rights, you know? It does not support the positive freedom of families to have material assistance from city planning and state and federal governments in matters of, like, finance, and it does not support the negative freedom of women and children from the control of you know, reactionary lawmaking or abusive husbands and fathers, you know? Stories I hear sometimes sound like they're straight out of a zombie apocalypse from minorities. Yeah, and it, you know, possibly, reading that sentence made me realize that might be one of the reasons that I'm not a huge fan of, like, zombie apocalypse kind of media, because the core premise of a zombie apocalypse thing is, oh my god, what if we had to live on such thin margins that survival wasn't a sure shot? Most people in society already live like that, you know? Especially if they are minorities. Rip. But going back to what I wanted, there's one other thing on my list that I wanted to go through. Speaking of Easter having recently happened, apparently the government decided not to declare martial law. Thank fuck, right? But that doesn't mean the problems are over. Yeah, that's true. That is the core of liberalism. The system's fine. If you're poor, you're just stupid. And then meanwhile, why are people running to fascism? All we did was tell people that you're just dumb and the system doesn't need to be changed. Is there a military coup unfolding at the Pentagon? Great question. The Hegseth scandal threatens civilian control of the military. From Ken Klippenstein. One of the only journalists I respect. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is embroiled in yet another scandal, but there's far greater crisis lurking behind his leaky ship, one that has real consequences for America. It's a campaign of subversion carried out by the military brass, one that is undermining the very principle of civilian control of the military. Yeah, this is one thing that's unique about the American military and other militaries in the West, is that they are controlled by the civilian sector. One of the things that enables a military junta to become a thing is that the military is basically in charge of itself. You know, the top bureaucrats in charge of the military will be military officers. And obviously on paper that makes a lot of sense. You want somebody who is running to the military to be familiar with the military and know how it works, right? But if you have that sort of military command structure where it's not necessarily integrated into the civilian government, or rather the civilian government isn't integrated into the military, then you can get like the military as a distinct institution with its own set of interests, almost like the military-industrial complex acting with a will of its own outside of what the state or the civilian private sector may want, right? Does the military even do anything anymore besides make new weapons? Good question. They still kill people in the Middle East. Those new weapons are being field tested in the Middle East, you know. So they kill brown people, but yeah, no. Apart from that, they don't do a whole lot aside from making weapons and like pouring money into defense contractors for the purpose of making said weapons. Through leaks, forced firings, insubordination, and other forms of bureaucratic intransigence. I don't know what that word means. The Pentagon bureaucracy is going out of its way to destroy his tenure, something he was plenty capable of himself. Yeah, this is one of the instances where it's like all the worst people you know are fighting, but it's hard to take solace in that because either way it has really bad consequences. As much as Hegseth's detractors might be right in that he's chaotic and unqualified, a senior serving officer said in an email exchange with me this week, he is Senate confirmed. It's up to Trump to remove him, not the uniformed military, because they want someone else to lead them. Now, this is why Ken Klippenstein is my goat. Kenny Clips. Hegseth is, of course, a dumbass. He vows to bring back a warrior culture, but all I see is a culture warrior. Bars? His focus on fighting wokeness in the military is a tedious detour into AM radio slop, especially while the U.S. is engaged in real wars in Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and here at home. Okay. Uniformed military officers and Pentagon officials I've talked to agree with this assessment, and they agree that those trying to defeat Hegseth are operating dangerously outside their lane. This is an instance where you actually, like, again, like I said, all the worst people you know are fighting, but at the same time, you kind of don't want Hegseth to go here, because as incompetent as he is a civilian officer leading the U.S. military, right? Like, that's... and that's an important mechanical component. It almost seems like he was kind of put there specifically to undermine the civilian primacy over the military. Or at least that's the effect that it was having. So it's, I guess it's regardless, like it doesn't matter whether he was put there for that purpose or not, because that's what's going on. Maybe he did that on purpose. It's possible. I mean, Hegseth is incompetent enough that that, like, on his part, and maybe even on Trump's part, it's likely by accident. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Democrats and Republicans that voted to confirm him in the House and Senate are playing basically on behalf of the military who wanted him there on purpose to gain more influence in the government, right? You know, the military-industrial complex has its fingers very deep in the congressional pie, particularly as it relates to like the more establishment types of senators. Frequently, when people talk about the political establishment, the military-industrial complex is a very big part of that. My senators, particularly me being in the state of Virginia, where a lot of military shipbuilding and CIA activities happen, my senators are uniquely captured by the military-industrial complex. Reminds me of a video, how liberals only like state violence. Yeah, liberals love state violence so much that they literally don't even view it as violence. They're like incapable of understanding abstracted forms of violence. That lack of political imagination and such. Anyways. As one officer said to me over the weekend, you can't say you're defending your oath to the Constitution while working to undermine it. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said Monday that the entire Pentagon is working against Hegseth. Whatever you think of Hegseth or the hyperbole, this is not good for America. We have a civilian in charge of the military with the president as commander-in-chief to ensure that the military is accountable to the people and their elected representatives, not to the whims of those in uniform. If there's one basic element in our Constitution, it is civilian control of the military. That is a quote from Harry Truman, former president. The general and admirals don't get to decide their priorities or their budget or even their own terms of service. That's the big kicker of how military dictatorship is possible in other countries, but there's a couple barriers between it here. How long till you think they'll activate martial law? They already decided not to, actually. I think now the big deciding factor in whether or not martial law is declared is whether or not civilian control of the military remains the order of the day. You know, if the military starts deciding its own priorities and budget, I think we will actually start to see, like, we will start to get more beginning, like, early warning signs of martial law coming. That's their new advanced weapon on minorities. I mean, they do that already, just not minorities in this country. You know? They test them on minorities, people that are minorities to us, but live in other countries, you know? That's kind of how the military-industrial complex operates. No! Oh, no! I meant, like, here? Yeah, no, they're not going to do that, probably. I didn't realize that you had to trick off that in order to make it through the shortcut. I'm gonna just start using this here. Okay. Good spot to use it. Okay. Wow! Stream sniping again. Classic. Nice. Owl House show that got canceled. Story about acceptance and stopping fascism. Really? Well, I do like anti-fascism in media. Big fan of that. Anyways, now that I'm done getting stream sniped for 3 minutes. Let's see. Here we go. As Secretary of Defense, Hegseth is supposed to embody civilian control of the military, and not be a part of it. Yet his office has been all but hollowed out in recent days, with 5 of his top aides being mysteriously drummed out. This includes his chief of staff, his deputy chief of staff, a senior advisor, his assistant for public affairs, and the chief of staff for the deputy secretary of defense. For all the concern people have been expressing about a constitutional crisis, we're closer to one here than we are with immigration, a senior retired general officer tells me. I'm not inclined to believe that retired general, because the constitutional crisis is already happening with respect to immigration. The administration is in defiance of the courts. That is the crisis, right? This is one thing I remember. I've skimmed through this article before opening it up on stream. The generals in this country are very, very sus. Oh, I got somebody. Yeah, it's like saying in the middle of a disaster, guys, I think a disaster is coming. Or like saying, basically, you're in the middle of a fucking hurricane and there's like a tornado in the next state over. And you're like, guys, I think that tornado is a little bit more dangerous than this hurricane that's currently happening right now at this moment. I don't know, guys. Like, dog. Oh, well, look, I think the core thing there is that the only reason you would say that is if you agreed with, if you were, like, sympathetic to unitary executive theory and the willingness of the administration to basically, like, just deport any and everybody without due process, including people who are not suspected of any crime and were legal residents. You can have first. Just kidding. Okay. Some reason people think Darth Vader is cool, even though he's a mentally ill person with superpowers, and that's because they want to be the mentally ill person with superpowers, probably. I have a feeling I'm about to get blued. Maybe. Cut off his son's hand was literally like, you can join me. Can you join me? Not sarcastic, yeah. Shoutouts to Empire Strikes Back for that one. On the rare occasion these days that civilian control has been raised at all by the press, it's inverted to say that the firing of this or that general somehow undermines civilian control of the military. The same stories often quote generals criticizing the firings with zero awareness of the irony. In some cases, civilian control is outright dismissed as an annoying detail. Yeah. Yeah, here, hold on. Former Council on Foreign Relations President Richard Haas scoffed at the relevance of civilian control on MSNBC's Morning Joe yesterday. You've got obviously civilian primacy, but you know you have a civilian in the Pentagon who's violating rules. That's it. It's always with the rules and the liberals about breaking rules. Never mind the fucking undermining of like constitutional foundations. It's always like, this rule was actually violated a little bit, so you know, you're bad actually. And yeah, as muddy as this sometimes gets, because like oftentimes the extent of coverage that Pete Hegseth gets in the news is how drunk he is all the time. You know, deserved, of course. Genuinely, it is a big problem that it seems like nobody really cares to talk about. Like, guys, it's really important that the military still be controlled by civilians. I got somebody. Somebody's gonna hit that. Oh, maybe not. Dang. No, there goes my lead. I think there was one other... There was like a couple big things still in the article that I wanted to bring up because it led me to believe that there's like a fork in the road of how... like what kind of political direction America goes in. Like there's a possibility that America becomes a military junta, and like the sort of some kind of garden variety anti-Trumpism gets like adopted by the military, but just insofar as like getting him out of office, and then like they end up doing a military dictatorship. How many forks in the road are there? There's a lot. I mean, we're talking about the course of history, right? Not comfortable with the cabal of officers agitating to undermine civilian control, the retired general officer says. Points out that liberals and Trump haters should be equally concerned. This is one thing that made me skeptical of this guy as well. It's like, you know, anti-Trumpers should be concerned by this too, as opposed to Trump supporters. It makes me, even though, here, let me read this next thing. If Bernie Sanders were president and he were slashing the defense budget, I would imagine that people would be zealously defending him, saying that cutting back the military is the will of the American people. That's why they elected him in the first place. And of course, that sentence is correct. If Bernie Sanders were a president and he were cutting military funding, I would be defending him, as are many others. But I don't think he's being honest here. I think he's being, like, dishonest in his framing. You know, legitimately, I think this guy is playing his cards close to the chest, this military officer. Because he's part of the military-industrial complex. Brass is now, with the departures of Hegseth's top civilian aides, the Pentagon brass is more empowered to run defense policy with minimal interference. This comes in the context of the growing war on the southern border and ongoing tensions with Iran, which nearly culminated in a massive joint U.S.-Israeli strike, as the New York Times reported last week. Yeah, that was one thing that I remember hearing about that sold me on the idea that, like, oh shit, maybe we are headed for a military junta in this country, because, like, there were a couple of, like, instances where the Iran nuclear deal has been floated again. You know how, like, when Obama was president, we had the Iran nuclear deal, which was basically, it was a normalization of relations between America and Iran under the condition that Iran would not pursue a nuclear program. You know, would not develop a nuclear weapon. And Trump decided that deal has to go. And so he unilaterally disregarded and, like, tore up that treaty, you know? Recently, they've been talking about, since Iran has increasingly become a geopolitical rival to the United States after the relations were denormalized, people have been talking about the possibility of renegotiating another treaty with Iran along those lines. Trump was actually kind of in favor of it because he wants to be Mr. Big Boy that makes all the cool business deals and stuff like that, you know? But interestingly, there were some people in the administration who were against it on the grounds of wanting to support Israel, America's like greatest ally, and also kills Palestinian children for fun. And guess who else was against it? The top military brass. The top military brass was all in on a joint U.S.-Israeli strike on Iran, starting a war. But Donald Trump actually didn't want it to happen. You know, he wanted to be Mr. Big, art of the deal. I'm a businessman. I'm doing business. I make deals, great deals, tremendous deals. The people, they love me for how good these deals are, you know? I think the military almost presents a more dangerous brand of the far right because they're competent. It's like the military almost in some ways represents how far to the right you can go while still being very competent technocrats. Yeah, they know how to kill people, basically. And of course, because of their relationships with military contractors, all the better if they can manufacture a war in order to do it. That way they keep the capital flowing into the military, into the coffers of the officers, and into their allies in the private sector that do all this manufacturing and private military contracting and hiring of mercenaries. Literally, it is like some Metal Gear Solid shit, you know? Metal Gear Solid actually deals with a military-industrial complex completely run amok that almost operates independent of the states that it is a part of, you know? And that would be what, like, the end to civilian control over the military would kind of bring. Like, it wouldn't be good at all. Reminds me of the Call of Duty level where you shoot civilians. What? Oh, no Russian? I tried to... Yeah. You know, on this track, I really just don't want to be in a middle spot going into the final lap. So this is fine right now. If I get this next box, I think I'm looking pretty good. Okay, good. Good, 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 good. 3 mushrooms? Well, the shock just happened, so I don't think it can happen again. Fourth, not bad. Yeah, look, okay, this is what I was talking about. As the Times describes it, the New York Times, that is, while Trump officials opposed military actions, including Hegseth Michael Kurilla, the 4-star Army general and leader of U.S. Central Command, wanted to join Israel. The Pentagon was like, yes, let us airstrike Iran completely unprompted with our greatest ally in the world, Israel. But the civilian officials at the Trump administration were like, no, even we're not that insane. The military was scrambling to develop an operations plan to attack Iran, largely according to the Times, because Kurilla was nearing retirement and wanted to go out with a bang. Oh, okay, wait, I might have misread this a little bit. Michael Kurilla is the 4-star Army general that really wanted to do this. What percentage would you give on their success rate on their plan succeeding? I don't fucking know, dude. I'm not Nostradamus. Per the Times, even if U.S. assistance was forthcoming, Israeli military commanders said that such an operation would take months to plan. That presented problems. General Kurilla's duty tour expected to conclude in the next few months. Israeli and American officials wanted to develop a plan that could be carried out while he was still in command. And then there will be motherfuckers out there that say the military isn't or shouldn't be political. Like, dog, the military has always been political. That's kind of how politics works, you know? Something, something, state violence, something. Got him. Snuck into first. Of course, if a blue shell comes in, I'm fucked. How does the median voter even survive? I don't fucking know, dude. I'm like, in part, I think they just don't, you know? Like, a lot of people are gonna die as a result of the economic mismanagement of this administration, as well as all of the human rights abuses that they are conducting here. We're just not gonna see it reported on because the media is complicit. Real life will be like Squid Game. Life imitates art that imitates life. Squid Game was based off of capitalism in South Korea. One of those games you're hiding a minority? That's fucking crazy, dude. I don't know. Dang. Right on the finish line, too. Real life on the actual show, even though that would be funny. Okay. Military commander going rogue and preparing for a strike, with the added danger that he maneuvers his forces in such a way to possibly cause an inadvertent war. That's the very reason the Secretary of Defense is in the chain of command. Which one is black? Dude. If that was really it in the show, that's fucked up. And also really funny because, like, Koreans and Japanese people, East Asia is actually pretty fucking racist. Not, like, systemically, to my knowledge, but, like, interpersonally, there's a lot of racism. Here we go. This paragraph is interesting. Part of the reason civilian control gets so little attention because of how much it's been eroded already. When Barack Obama became president, he hired a retired general to be his national security advisor, and he hired retired generals and admirals as the CIA director and director of national intelligence. Well, shit, that gets painted in a new light now. Obama was clearly trying to shore up his national security credentials, but the move also politicized the military in the case where Democrat general, in that these were Democratic generals and admirals. Why is that the analysis? Huh? I don't think that's the right way to really be putting that. If anything, I would say, like, the fact that he's starting to fill up the civilian sector of the government with military officers is concerning because it you know, like, and I mean, the point is clearly being communicated there, but I don't know why you focus on the fact that these people are Democrats. Obviously, a Democratic president being part of the Democratic Party is going to hire more Democrats for political, like, positions or you know, appointed positions and stuff like that, right? Because they're more likely to be amicable to the objectives of the president, right? That's kind of how the government works in that way, you know? Although these days you probably get a lot of Democrats like Kamala Harris who are like, well, I'll have more Republicans in my cabinet, you know? That's the concerning bit to me, that, like, these are retired military officers that you're hiring for civilian positions, right? Like, obviously, yeah, you want to shore up your credentials and you want people with a resume, right? But, like, there's a reason that the Pentagon is presided over by civilian officials and why all these agencies are part of the civilian sector. You know? I don't know. It's just a weird little thing. Damn. Me in first place have a pretty big lead, although my lead just shrank to nothing. That POW fucked me up. That shock fucked me up even worse. Holy shit, people got it in for me. And I still got third. Fuck all of you. This isn't just a Democrat problem. Thank you for acknowledging that Republicans are probably worse in every way. Really? Hold up. When Donald Trump nominated retired Marine Corps General James Mattis to be his first Secretary of Defense in 2017, it was the first time since 1950 that a retired general had been selected for the civilian position, and only the second time in U.S. history. Retired generals are forbidden by law from serving as defense secretary before a 7-year cooling off period, but Trump waived the requirement. Big surprise. Hate people for using denial till they go into the grave. It gets people killed. Yeah, it does. That's, in fact, one of the biggest things I have against liberalism. The institutional and political inertia that plagues the mind of the liberal and prevents them from being politically imaginative is a form of denial. Mattis ended up quitting because of a dispute with Donald Trump over the president's desire to remove U.S. troops from Syria. This is another argument where they're both bastards, but one of them is more correct than the other one, right? Trump wanted to get American troops out of Syria because, like, well, I don't know, for some set of incoherent reasons, right? The reason that American troops were in Syria were to protect our allies, the Kurds, in Syria, right? And Trump loves dictators like Assad and Erdogan, so he probably wanted to take them out for that reason. Meanwhile, this military general, Mattis, wanted American troops to remain in Syria because they are good for the American military-industrial complex there, and they're also good for Israel if we have American troops stationed relatively nearby, right? It's, you know, again, the worst people you know are fighting, and they all fucking suck. You know, and the consequences fucking suck. Ultimately, Trump did get his wish, and American troops were pulled out of Syria. Because Mattis resigned from the position. Be a law if you ever use denial, you should get slapped in the face real hard. True. Yeah, if legal code, it is permitted to slap somebody forward or backhanded if they ever say that it couldn't happen here, basically. I support this. Almost got him. That meant to be me throwing the green shell, but I guess not. Must be 100% effort. True. Yeah, you can't just like do a tiny little baby slap. You gotta put some fucking muscle into that shit. New law. Vote for me for president. Thank you. I think the government will try to get rid of Wonder Woman's lasso of truth. No, they're into BDSM, so they're not gonna do that. Mattis' tenure left behind a sense a retired general knew better. Basically the opposite of what the Constitution sought to establish. Yeah, that could have a really damaging effect, right? When Joe Biden became president, he selected retired General Lloyd Austin to be his Secretary of Defense. Democratic Congressman Jared Golden, a member of the Armed Services Committee and a Marine Corps veteran, voted against Austin. Per his statement, history shows that Congress has long respected and taken seriously the requirement of civilian control and provided a waiver for only the most exceptional circumstances. I do not believe we find ourselves in such circumstances today. Huh. Yeah, that's pretty bad. That was really quiet too. Nobody talked about that at the time. That it, like, between 2008 and 2020, it just all of a sudden became normalized to have a retired general be in charge of the civilian defense department. If anything, that kind of makes it more likely in my mind that the United States could end up going the military junta path. You know? I blame the Democrats. I blame the Democrats for being really fucking captured by the military-industrial complex. And I blame the Republicans for also being extremely captured by the military-industrial complex and being like, anything for Israel. Smiley face. You know? No, it's the fucking cactus. Military ads? Oh yeah, I've seen some military ads too, particularly on Twitch. Seen a lot of those going around. Okay. Literally said you were made for this? Yeah. Yeah, go fucking die for some... I guess they don't have to try very hard because, like, job recruiters don't try either anymore. So it's like, well, why would we have to present a compelling alternative when the military is now one of the most, like, stable employers in the job market? Seriously. Like, if you enlist in the military, you actually get a full scholarship. Like, you go to college for free if you join the military. You know? And it used to be that, like, one of the things about enlisting in the military is the pay wasn't all that great. But now with the pay being what it is in other parts of the economy and whatnot, like, the military is starting to look like more and more appealing by comparison. There are a lot of ways in which the both the job market and the administrative environment in the United States is coming to resemble more and more a fertile ground for a military dictatorship. And I don't think that's good. The only silver lining is that military dictatorships don't tend to be as discerning in their oppression as fascist regimes, right? Although that is just a tendency. It's not like a absolute rule. I've seen cop behavior. Yeah, true. Oh well. Do they have an aura of evilness? I'm not joking. Oh yeah, they're trained to exude that kind of aura. If you've ever seen, like, training videos that cops have to watch and, like, training courses that they take, it's literally like, it is actually violence as a first resort. That, like, under any circumstance where there could possibly be danger to yourself, you should pull your gun mag dump into somebody. Seriously, mag dumping is protocol. You know? I'm gonna use this for the shortcut. Yeah. Okay. Missed the low trick. Unfortunate. Can't believe I didn't have to adjust my angle there. Oh, did he fall off? Nice. No! I got the mushroom and then instantly got hit by the red shell, which was the worst possible outcome there. Man, fuck you. Damn. Now some people know that we have problems with reality right now. It's the Nintendo Switch 2. Yeah, that's that was kind of the purpose of me talking about that. It's like, dog, I feel like, as much as this is a lefty meme, I feel like you do really have to be privileged enough to not care about anything, or you have to be, like, very vacuous to look at the price of the Switch 2 and, like, the fact that a game will now be $90 instead of $60 and think that's a pressing issue, but, like, not everything else. You know? Or to say, like, oh, sure, that other stuff is also bad, but this is a political issue that belongs in that same category. Like, no. Part of me is glad, grateful people can't escape, like, do escapism out of their problems. Yeah, I mean, if anything, it could be a wake-up call, right? Yeah, you have to fucking drag them kicking and screaming into the realization that shit, like, real shit exists. It's getting warm in here. This might actually be... This or the next race might be my last one. Not sure. Depends on how hard I get stream sniped this race. I have to break them to make them want to solve problems, sadly. Yeah, and that's why, like... That's why right now is, like... most people on the left are kind of on the accelerationism arc. Like, fuck it. You know, make circumstances bad enough that people can't afford to ignore anything. They're gonna shock me right out of the cannon. Or maybe they'll wait a little bit. Okay. Okay. Oh, wow. I am surprised that he avoided that. Okay, he had a green shell for that one. That makes sense. Younger brother only realizes he needs money once he's literally homeless, not joking. I feel bad for him, but also, like, how do you not understand how money works? Like, in a world so dominated by money that governments are literally bought and sold for the purpose of, like, accumulating even more money. No, I was late to realize that that star was there. Could have probably gotten it. Oh, nice. I will get first for free. Okay. Good last race. Man, I always have this problem with brain fog where I remember there are some things that I wanted to talk about that weren't necessarily news related. I don't want this to just be the live stream where I talk about the news and everything is really depressing. There's also fun stuff that I wanted to talk about. But I keep forgetting. He hasn't realized he's 21 years old? Yeah. Welcome to the past year? Yeah. It really has been this way. For a year or more. I guess I should write down some of that shit, too. Some of the other shit that I wanted to talk about that it wasn't just, like, politics. I think Andor Season 2 is, like, releasing right now. I'm gonna do the same thing, actually. How do the people that only learned by touching the stove that's hot survive to begin with? Well, because you have pain receptors that you touch the stove, it's hot, you get burned, and then you recoil away and you learn that. How do I know this? Because I was the kid that, like, touched the stove when they were 4 years old and discovered that it was hot. Hot things are hot, idiot. And that's how I learned that there were physical consequences to touching things that are hot. You get burned. That person that you're talking about, that was me. The difference is, I did that when I was 4 years old, and a lot of people are having this realization politically when they're 40 years old. And at that stage in your life, it's going to be hard to survive when you commit to touching a stove so large that it plunges an entire country into depression, economic depression. That's hard. Touching the stove when you're a kid, I would say that's like an integral part of growing up because kids are fucking dumb. You touch a frying pan, you touch the stove or whatever, and you get burned. You're like, ow, that hurt. But then you learn that, like, hot things are hot, idiot. You know? Even learning it in advance, sometimes you do have to have tangible consequences when you do something, right? I don't know. Look, what I was gonna say, one of the things I remembered just now, I watch a show where it teaches people to not be self-taught helpless. Hopefully a show like Andor could do that, right? That'd be great. Like, there should be more media that teaches people not to learn helplessness, because I feel like that's a large part of the decline of liberalism, is that a lot of the institutions of media and government are tooled to deactivate people in that way, you know? But speaking of media, Andor. Second season is I believe it's out right now, or like the first couple episodes are airing either now or very soon, like sometime this week. I think I'm gonna do the same thing. God damn it, why does that YouTube thing autoplay? I think I'm gonna do the same thing with Andor, the show, as I did with Invincible Season 3, which is I'm gonna wait till it's done airing. I'm gonna avoid spoilers, and then I'm going to watch it at like one episode at a time at a decent pace, so that I don't binge it, so I can take it all in a little bit better. That's what I want to do. I will, like, actually, you know, I don't know. I was gonna say I will see if people say it's good, I might, like, take that to sort of form an expectation, but I don't know if I even necessarily want to do that, right? Like, I guess on some level, I'll be reassured if it's a good show, but it kind of like, there are some ways in which I really want to go in blind so I can watch the show and sort of process it as I'm watching it and not, like, binge through it. But in order to watch it that way, I have to wait till the whole thing is aired, so I don't feel the pressure to like tune in every week or something like that, you know? Yeah. Is the live stream over? Yeah, just about. I was trying to think of if there was something else that I wanted to mention that wasn't in politics, but I think it's just I'll have to start writing that stuff down as well. Uh, yeah. I don't know, man. I've been working on editing stuff. Oh, one thing I've been working on editing is the big tier list video. That's gonna be several different videos. I've figured out. I'm trying to develop like a pipeline for producing that, so that it doesn't like, so that it's not just another like 4 hour long thing. So it can be in more bite-sized chunks. Kind of an experiment. But now that I'm done with some of the bigger projects that I've been working on, that's gonna be my new big thing, big project. You know. Anyways, who is live right now? Mango, Aoife, Sun. Oh yeah. Let's go check out Hassan. The Hasanabi broadcast. They're talking about the like fucking the proposed $5,000 payment for every baby a woman has or some shit. Most intelligent fascist policy making. We will give you a one-time $5,000 payment for every baby you crank out. Never mind the fact that in the hospital it fucking costs $30,000 to deliver a baby. Or not. Never mind the fact that it was like they just don't care. It goes to what I was saying with that other thing that's going to become a segment about how fascists talk about the issue of declining birth rates versus how the issue actually is. Anyways. See y'all later. I'll try to write down... I'm going to try to remember to write down some more stuff that I thought would be like fun to share on stream that isn't just politics, because that shit is killing me. And I know that right after I end the stream, I'm going to fucking forget. Or I'm not going to forget. I'm going to remember some of the shit that I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to be kicking myself over it.